You ask a lady who is the father to your child, she doesn't know because
one person can make a huge difference, but it's just stepping out there.
There's a lot of problems in the world.
Let's just stop quoting these women.
How society expertly ignores male pain. Bravo, Atul.
Just because the girl resisted his attempt to pleasure himself, he strangled her to death.
No matter what her behaviour is, she does never deserve to be raped.
Namaste, women. I am Yuvraj Singh, and today we are diving into something super controversial but absolutely necessary to talk about. Do women invite assault by the way they dress? Are false allegations of sexual harassment ruining lives? And why do so many people still believe it's the victim's fault? These are uncomfortable questions, but let's be real. Someone needs to ask them. And today we are doing just that with Yale's Hayes, an authenticity leadership coach from Switzerland, who is about to give us some really honest answers. This episode might just change the way you think. So stay with us because it's about to get real. So, welcome to Namaste Women. I'm so excited to have Yale Hayes with us today. So, to kick things off, ma'am, could you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, hi everyone. My name is Yael Hayes. I have been working as oh my gosh, how long has it been now? As an authentic leadership coach for a while. and um, and yeah, and I have quite the history behind me. I was really intrigued to come onto the podcast and the channel because I do feel that, yeah, this is not spoken about enough. Yeah. And it is a topic that is close to my heart. So happy to be here.
Okay. So, starting with the first question, we live in a society where we see a lot of rape cases and sexual violence incidents that happen. So, what
Yeah.
could be the reasons for these incidents?
So I'm going to be a little bit harsh here and a little bit unpopular. I'm going to make myself a bit unpopular here. One of the methods that I have learned, one of the modalities, the healing modalities that I've learned is timeline therapy. And in timeline therapy, there is an understanding that we somewhat subconsciously choose our experiences. And so in some cases, at least for me, it does also happen from something that I need to learn because of something that I need to learn. So let's say you have a woman that is going through sexual abuse or something. There is something in there that she needs to learn. Otherwise, her soul wouldn't be asking for these or wouldn't be creating these experiences. Of course, why exactly this woman, why exactly in that moment, in this situation with this man, there's no accidents. So there is that angle to it. However, that's a very, 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 touchy thing to say. That's risky to say because obviously on the broad spectrum, of course, someone has to do the deed as well, right? And so it's kind of a shared reality there. I work a lot with the metaphysical, so from there, you're kind of looking onto these situations from a bird's eye view, and so that's how, when we are looking at it from that angle, we can really see, yeah, okay, there is a reason behind everything that's happening. But whether the people go ahead and learn the lessons they need to learn is a different question. Generally speaking, I really feel that it has become very common in our societies to be disconnected. People are extremely disconnected from their empathy, from their compassion. Many, mostly we hear about rape cases and sexual abuse done by men, carried out by men. There is also that carried out by women, but it is less common, or less spoken of, maybe. But mainly what I've seen is that, you know, because of how our society is built and how disconnected from nature we are in most cases, that natural masculine instinct, the secure masculine instinct to care, to protect, to provide, has kind of been lost a little bit across the broad spectrum. And so many men, you know, they don't have that sense anymore, that sensibility anymore, and they lose themselves. And that's when things like these happen.
Exactly. So I was going through a report which stated that 96% of rape cases that happens are acquittance rape cases, in which the person whom you know commits rapes with you. So how can
Wow.
people who are facing these issues can figure out that the person whom with them they are living should be protected?
I didn't quite catch your question. So are you saying that the people that are in these situations in the same house with their perpetrator, how that they can protect
Exactly.
themselves?
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So this is a really difficult thing to navigate, right? Because if it's a child, it's quite hard for the child to get out. That's the only way to get that child out is physically, right? Have an authority come in and, you know, take the child and bring it to a safe space. Because in most cases, the difficulty with when children go through this, and this is what, you know, not personally I went through within my home, but I did go through sexual abuse at kindergarten. But if it's in the home, it's usually the case that the parents, at least one of them, was also sexually abused, and that's how it's being passed on in a way. The karma, if you want to see it that way, is kind of being passed on in a way until someone breaks the cycle. And hopefully, you know, it ends there. And the partner of that person that is carrying out the abuse is also in most cases either completely unaware of it, but has come in contact with it as well. And so they have shut themselves down and out of that type of behavior or reality that they can't recognize it anymore. So either they're really unaware of it and, you know, superficially unaware of it, but maybe deep in their hearts somewhere they know, or they are aware of it, but they don't have, let's say, the courage or the strength to stand up to it, or maybe they just think it's normal because that's what they experienced as well. So it's a really tricky situation. Mainly what I would say, especially to, you know, if you're an adult and you are going through that type of situation where you're being the one that's being abused, if you have the possibility to leave, you leave, obviously. But if you are finding yourself in a situation where you are emotionally tied to that person or financially tied to that person, that can be really, really difficult because there's so much feeling of dependency. And so one way to start going about this is to build a social field. That's something that I've seen that's been really helpful. So really trying to create friendships that are outside of the house, that are not connected to your spouse or whoever is, you know, inflicting themselves upon you,
Exactly.
so that you can start building and creating relationships with people that are outside, and create relationships that you can later ask for help. You know, what we see a lot is that people become extremely isolated in these cases. And it's a technique, it's a strategy by the perpetrator to isolate the victim in a way.
Exactly.
And so we're really, the first step would really be like, hey, how can I build small relationships, you know? And this can be as, you know, if you're constantly under surveillance, let's say by this person, it can be tough. But this can be actually as simple as when you go to a grocery store, say hello to the checkout, to the person at the cashier, at the checkout, and do it again and again and again and every time, and start having a conversation with them. slow relationships, it will do two things, right? On the one hand, you will start getting to know people on the outside that you can ask for help. And on the other side, you will also have somewhat of a sense of, oh, there is something other than this. People can view me differently than as a victim. Maybe I can view myself differently. Maybe I am worth standing up for and doing something about this situation for. And so you're starting to kind of reprogram your subconscious mind. So it's really about finding a bit of outside social proof and stability for yourself.
It's a very unique approach, which you said that if you are getting isolated because of a single person, you need to have a societal connection so that you can
Yeah,
explore and have a different mindset for that. That's really
absolutely.
a approach that can be adopted by many people.
I think so. You know, everyone has a friend, or everyone goes to the grocery store, or I don't know, to the library or to the gym, whatever it is. You can build relationships anywhere. And if we're in a survival situation like that, or if we call this survival mode, right? If someone is constantly under stress this way, it's so unhealthy to the body. And we call this survival mode. If you're in survival mode, it's very, very hard to kind of get out of it on your own. So it really does help if you can build somewhat of a social structure around yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if we think about a narrow-minded society where people are not aware of the rape cases or the incident that happened across different places, what I feel is that we are very privileged to know about these issues. There are many people who are not even aware of these things. So, how can we provide them resources, or how can we let them know about these things, and how can they protect themselves?
So the main thing, obviously, always is education. It's honestly just telling them about it, which I know that sounds very straightforward and it takes a lot of courage, but that exact vulnerability that we show to people we trust, right? I don't want anyone exposing themselves to just anyone else, but if you tell a friend, let's say, and it's someone that you're trusting, right? If you tell a friend, they will be aware of it, and then they might tell another friend, and they might tell another friend, and so it spreads, right? But education, until this day, knowledge is power, right? So if we can educate people, that's one thing. And one way that I found is quite interesting to educate people, again, is either with personal stories, and you can bring that up in a coffee chat with someone, quite literally, you know, when you're interacting with a friend or interacting with someone else. You can bring that up in a coffee chat with someone, or you can literally go to a school, and this is something that we've had people do, go to a school and say, hey, you know, this is an issue. Here are the statistics. I do not want this to happen to anyone at this school or university. Let's organize a lecture, right? Yes. And it takes, again, it takes a lot of courage to stand up and do that. But think about you when you were young, let's say, before or maybe during something like this was happening to you. If you had had someone there that would stand up like this in front of your classmates and your class and your teacher and say, hey, this is happening, you would be sitting there in tears because finally someone is seeing you. And that is exactly the power of standing up and being vulnerable and saying, hey, like, I have a story to share. I really want to share it in a safe environment with safe people, but I want to share it so that it doesn't happen to others, and so others know how to protect themselves. Before you do that, and that's a really, 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 really important step. And so I want to make it really clear before you do that, before you go and tell anyone, there is one aspect that personally I have found to be absolutely, just absolutely essential. And this is something that I now work with my clients, and that is building inner safety. And then inner safety is built with, you know, self-defense classes, with martial arts classes, go to the gym, get strong, get fit, know where to strike, how to strike, you know what I mean? Get some trust back into your body. Get the knowledge that you have control over this physical body and no one else, and know how to defend yourself. And that's going to give you a lot of confidence. And then with that, do the emotional work to build that inner confidence, that inner safety. And that's when you can really step into in front of a crowd and say, hey, this is what happened to me. This is how you can protect yourself. This is where you can sign up. You know what I mean? And then that's how it can work.
That's really amazing. But what I have experienced through various incidents that I have seen is that people don't really want to talk about it. And if people are talking about it, they won't allow us to talk about it. So
It's hard.
this is
Yeah.
a very minor issue, but it becomes a very broad issue in a very larger sense.
Yeah.
So that is ultimately we need to deal, and that's a very important point that going to a school and educating through a story will eventually help people a lot.
Yeah. And I
So,
mean, even
yeah,
you know, even if it's um, one way that you can go at it as well is like to all of the gyms, to all of the public places, hang up posters, just create awareness, because genuinely it takes about 7 times or something like that, 7 to 12 times for people to be confronted with something until they register it and they're starting to think about it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like an advertising. And so if you can start just posting things everywhere about it, hey, just saying, hey, this is an issue, wake up. This is how you can protect yourself, maybe. It's going to start becoming a conversation. And so it just helps to speak up. You don't have to do it, personally. You can do it anonymously, hang up a poster, but start doing something if it's in you,
exactly. That's why we even started this because we know that people are aware, but people are not doing anything. So we want people to do
Exactly.
and think it on a daily basis. So this is how we are going to work
Exactly.
on. So coming up with the last question that
Go for
women women make such people have a perception that women make sexual assault allegations out of spite to take revenge. And there are also women who invite sexual assault by the way they dress and behave. So these are the misconceptions which are generated within people's mind. So how can we
Mhm.
deal with this issue, and also how can a woman individually think of this issue?
Oh, loaded question. Okay. Right. So to speak to the first one is women, making allegations of sexual assault. Um, I would always ask yourself of the motive. Why would a woman do that? Why would she? What is the use to her to just say, "Hey, yeah, I was sexually assaulted"? Because think about what position that puts her into. Like for me, just to give you context, it took 30 years until I was able to, until the memory even surfaced in my mind. You know what I mean? And then it took another couple months to come out and say, hey, this is what happened to me. So if a woman's just coming out and say, well, he did this, you're going to notice in the way that she says it, whether it's the truth or not. I know that there are stories around of women making allegations like these to hurt men. If that's truly the case, they're not doing it without a reason. They're bringing that so that they can cover up another reason that maybe they can't share, but there is always a reason for it. Always. And in my experience, I've never seen these allegations made without a proper reason. And so that's just the first thing to think about. And I think that's something that can be prevented, again, if we just open the field to conversation and we just say, like, hey, it's not just about these types of situations, it's about the whole entire relationship at home. And if that relationship isn't good, let's change something about it so that these allegations they're not even on the table. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really starting to learn how to relate, how to communicate, how to respect each other, and really how to own your own emotions and to regulate yourself. And this is something that I've seen specifically, for men in higher stress situations, higher stress positions. Not necessarily in leadership, but just men that are dealing with a lot of stress in their life. This might be financial, this might be from work. Is that they have a very low threshold before they explode, and then something that happens, right? So it's really just both parts in the relationship learning how to regulate their emotions, owning their reality, owning their emotions, and then starting to act out of respect. And this can be, nourished in many different ways. There's workshops, there's podium discussions, talks, and so on that we can do that can facilitate these types of thoughts in people. Does that make sense? So that's to number one on maybe, how we can stop these allegations, because there is always a reason. And maybe it's just about understanding a little bit more what's really going on at home, why these allegations are being made. And that's when we can really understand the issue and the cause, if these are actual allegations. But in most cases, it's the truth, right? In most cases, it's the truth. It's a question of sensitivity and also of how safe these women feel to come out with the truth. If a woman doesn't feel safe to say, hey, my husband is doing this and this and that, but feels safer to say, well, he raped me, you've got to ask yourself what kind of society we live in, that is where they go. You know what I mean? So just creating a bit more safety for women generally to speak out is the smart idea. And to the other thing, the other question you asked, just help me remember for a minute.
It's about the misconception that people have about the women, that they invite sexual assaults by the way they dress and behave.
Or the way they dress, yeah. Okay. This is really interesting. So I'll just give you my own, idea here, my own example. When I dress up because it looks nice. I don't dress up for other people. I dress up because I like to look that way, and because it's fun for me to look that way. Again, this is me owning my reality. But, there are women that maybe they are compensating for something. Maybe they don't feel good enough about themselves, something like that, and they will dress a bit provocatively in a way. But again, dressing is one thing, but we are not, as a woman, I don't have control over someone else's mind, and I don't have control over someone else's actions. So this is really about empowering society where people take responsibility for their actions and their thoughts and build integrity. Yeah, maybe a man can look, but that's a far cry away from him doing something. And that's not something she has any control over. That's a choice he makes. Yeah. And so it is unfair to the woman to take responsibility for that, because it's not her responsibility. She dresses the way she wants to dress, the way she feels comfortable. And if a guy acts upon that, that's not on her. That's on him to have the discipline to say, hey, I'm better than this. And I might look away, or I will treat her with respect regardless of how she dresses. I will try to understand why maybe she dresses that way, if that's relevant to him, right? Just think of the societies where women generally dress a bit more provocatively. Let's talk about Brazil, for example, where women do dress a bit more provocatively than maybe in other places, but they're not being, like, not every woman that dresses provocatively is treated this way. Do you see what I mean?
Exactly.
It is a cultural thing. It is a societal thing. It's really important to start empowering men to actually be secure men, and to act in integrity, and to start treating women to a gentleman's standard, really. And that I find really interesting of how we can do that is by actually, and this is not spoken enough about, unfortunately, there is toxic masculinity that's spoken about a lot, right? There is also toxic femininity. There truly is such a thing. And if we want men to step up and step into a secure masculine role, we have to work on ourselves as well to become securely feminine. And that is something I help people with. That is a really important aspect, because if you are a secure feminine person, woman, if you own your reality, if you say no more, I'm going to respect myself, something in your subconscious mind is going to shift. And when that shift happens, the way that you interact with people and the way men interact with you is going to change completely. And I've seen this in my reality where I am being approached by completely different men, absolute gentlemen, where before I was being approached by not such nice gentlemen. Let's put it that way. Not even gentlemen. And so this is also where we have, as women, have a responsibility to really change what's inside so that we can start attracting better men, quite frankly. And so that the men that might not be at that level yet, but that we do feel at least a certain level of connection or respect for, that we can create a space for them to rise up into their secure masculinity as well. So everyone needs to do this together. This is not just a man's job and not just a woman's job. Everyone needs to work on this together.
Exactly. It's very exciting and it's very interesting that the way when I started this platform, when I considered it as a Namaste Women, where we are inculcating both women and men. It's very interesting that whatever I had thought at that time, that whatever women should think of, is what you have spoken right now. So I just
Really?
really appreciate the way you conveyed these messages. And
Oh,
thank
yes.
you so much for being here and sharing your thoughts with us today. And I'm sure that your voice and your ideas will truly inspire us. And we will also inspire other people to stay empowered and educated. So we are very grateful
Yes,
for your time and
absolutely.
wisdom. And I hope
Well,
this
I'm
conversation
really
really inspires.
grateful for it. Was amazing. I'm really grateful for your questions. They were excellent. And also that, you are doing this work, because you wouldn't expect this coming from a man. And I think that's powerful, that you as a man are standing up and saying like, hey, this is something we need to work on here. So that's really powerful. And I really thank you for that. And I know many women are thanking you for that as well. And men,
Exactly.
definitely.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you so much for watching, and if this conversation made you uncomfortable, that's good. That means it's working. So share this with someone who needs to hear this. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because this is just the beginning. I will see you in the next one. Stay aware, stay empowered, and please share the video if you want an empowered and an educated society.